IVM.
Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.
Hello and welcome to the Habit Coach Podcast. I am Ashdin Doctor, your habit coach. And today we have, for a second time, Kavita Rajwade on our podcast. And if you missed the last episode, it's very interesting. We spoke about how she found gamification as a way of making this lockdown more fun. And these two podcasts are basically conversations that we've had in the past when we have had discussions on life and things like that. And I found interesting. And I said, this is something that I wish we could share on our podcast. And I said, Kavita, at some point of time, I'm going to have you on the podcast sharing these thoughts. And today's discussion is about work. You know, the way that we approach work is so important. And the way that we create our own our identity for work is so important. The way that we have our mentors that we learn from is so important. And Kavita and I discuss this very often because we deal with people who are coming into work for the first time, straight out of college. And the problem is that college does not teach you about work life, right? College teaches you about studying and learning, but not about how to work. And learning these things are so important. So Kavita, welcome to the Habit Coach Podcast. And I'm so excited to have this discussion with you.
Hi, Ash. Glad to be on your show one more time.
Yay. So Kavita, you work with a lot of people who come in from, straight out of college and are looking for jobs. And, IVM does a fantastic job of mentoring people, coaching people through these things and employing them. Tell me, what is it that, you wish people who come in for their first job knew?
I think people, when they come straight from college, it's important to kind of build a little bit of an expectation map in your mind, right? What is this place? They seem like they're a new media organization. They're rather young. What is the kind of work that they're putting out? To be a little aware of that and to be able to map your own expectation of it. How do you want to apply what you have? And that means that you need to sit down and understand, what do I really have to contribute to this organization? And you need to I understand that you might not have it in a rather specific, thought process or some such, but I'm like, what? At the end of it all, I think I come with some amount of enthusiasm to learn. Some amount of enthusiasm to be able to adapt, some amount of enthusiasm of how I want to kind of approach this experience. It's like how you would plan a holiday. You know what you want, right? And that's when you go and book what you feel is going to help you achieve that desire or fun level that you are expecting out of it. So I think it's all about expectation matching, right? What do you think your employees expect of you, employers expect of you? It's important to go into the first day of work and observe and see what the movement around the office is. What is the mood? Who's saying what? What is important? Where is the pace? All of these things are, and I think these are not things that that even your graduation college or your business college or media college that you went to was all a certain pace. No, you had to attend classes every day. You needed to kind of put in your work. You needed to get grades. This is pretty much the same thing. So yeah, I feel like just ensuring that you're going in to observe and a certain amount of enthusiasm is important.
That first day is so critical. Do you remember your first day
Yes,
of working
I
ever?
do.
Take us through it.
So, I'm from Pune. So I started working there initially. And then I moved to Bombay when I was 22. My first job in Bombay, of course, when I was in Pune, when I was studying in my advertising college, I kind of also moonlighted at an agency. I had a really fantastic boss, a brilliant lady who was running a small agency outfit, that kind of catered to a lot of the tech companies that were in Pune, and we did a lot of media buying and creative work for them. And I went in there to kind of manage a certain high value brand that they had on board, and she was brilliant, right? She understood where I was coming from. She knew how to kind of contain my enthusiasm. I wanted to do almost everything, so I was very forthcoming. And it was like, oh, y'all are worried about who's going to handle this. Don't worry. Why don't you put me on this? Help me learn the ropes of it. But if you want like a little bit of I mean, if you want someone to be a little bit of a gatekeeper, I'm your girl. Like, allow me this. And I was happy to throw myself into these challenges. But when I moved to Bombay is when I actually, it was a result of like me having completed my post graduation and then wanting to come to Bombay because I was a media student. My first job was at Elle, the fashion magazine. And I was a small town girl. I mean, coming from Pune, where, I'd come from a really, really great, job experience. And I thought, all jobs are going to be like that. And all the people that I work with are going to be like that. And there was my first day at L, and I was wearing, a khadi kurta pajama at a fashion office. And everyone just looked at me like I came from and wondered who hired me. But I sat there looking, and it was like a scene straight out of like The Devil Wears Prada, right? There was an editor, there was like a fashion editor, there were other people in the creative team, and just the dynamics. It was overwhelming for sure because I didn't come from that at all. It was amazing to see like how people dressed to work every day, and how people worked as hard as they did, and they were so good at what they did. And I was like, wow, this is such a like, how do you study to be like, a stylist, right? And you need to kind of focus on your inherent idea of style to be able to do a good job. And that was amazing. But I survived like the 12 months, and that was it. I was done. I was like, this is not the kind of space I want to be at. And my next stint then was at a radio station, which was fantastic. Again, very, initial stage, pretty much. I think like when IVM began, and, it was, I think like pretty much at the same, I'm talking about 2003, right? When I went to this radio station, and they were pretty much at the same stage of putting out FM radio as a product or as a medium to media brands and to all of that. So that was fun because again I wanted to throw myself into a new space. I was happy to not actually be in print or television because I thought I wanted to kind of do something else in the interim and see what it took. Work at a challenger brand, if I may call it that. Radio was not popular. So for the 4 years of that stint of mine, it was great because we worked very hard. We were a tight 25-member team, and we worked very hard to keep that station up and running, and we did a beautiful job of that. And that was a really fulfilling experience. So I realized that, I thought maybe there's a little bit of a pattern here, that there'll be an alternative, like, okay, so I had a great first job, then my second job was not very fun, then radio was fun, and there I was looking at my next stint, which wasn't fun, which was at a television network. But that was just, it was like being in the jungle. Television is massive, right? As a category. I mean, not just, I mean, radio stations, we were fewer. There was lesser people to compete with, if you know what I mean. But television was another ball game. And I had to be worried about like my colleague sitting next to me, if he kind of, he or she like found out about like which brand or client I was speaking to. And, it was that competitive, and tempers were flaring because it's a television network thing, stories were being broken, so the environment and the atmosphere was electric, but at the same time didn't really do anything for me from kind of learning and picking up, and this whole thing about like mentors that you mentioned earlier,
Correct.
to find people that you think you can work with and learn from. So I could say that my television experience was rather like forgettable. But yeah, I mean, these were like the initial, stints, went through different mediums, went through all of the challenges to be in a new environment. So I feel like it's important to know what you're jumping into and know what like the pace is going to be and to judge that, right? I felt like the two places that I didn't enjoy too much, I wasn't getting into the groove of things,
Correct.
and that's the reason why I felt maybe inadequate or like not maybe applying myself as much as I should have, because I thought I was applying myself, you know.
Yeah. You were not necessarily giving your all because you didn't feel like it at that
I
point
was
of time. Yeah.
beginning to fall ill. I didn't even know at that point in time that actually this was, I was waking up with all kinds of things, and I'm a reasonably like, tough, like not easy to fall sick person. But it affected me so much, and it didn't realize because, at that point in time, like, mental health and conversations around work and mental health and, and stuff related to that was not a thing to talk about.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that, actually, Kavita, there's a correlation between you falling as sick as you're falling with the time that you're spending at work and the kind of things you're, thinking about when you're there and, what that was doing to you. And I didn't know that stress and inflammation was, a correlation, and that your gut health is like so important, that this is something that's festering inside you. And your toothache actually is not because you have a cavity, because my dentist will be like, I can't see anything, I have no idea, it's just an inflammation. And couldn't, and now is when I can sit down and say, actually, heck, I didn't figure that correlation then, but I figured that correlation now.
Correct. In fact, apart from mental health and understanding about health, there's another thing that I think has changed from even the first time when I started working, probably from the time you started working as well, which is now this whole concept of passion, and I will only work in a place that I'm passionate about, right? I remember when I was growing up, that concept didn't exist that I will only work in a place that I'm passionate about. मतलब काम है, धंधा है, see what is good, what is
And what makes
that
you
that is
money?
what makes you money. Those are the kinds of things that were there. What is the change that you see when people are following passion and things like that now?
So I'm
Do you
guilty
think
of
it's
it as well. After these three stints that I told you about, I went and worked very closely with an IPL team. And over there, I thought, wow, what a great explosive combination. I love sport. I love competitive sport. I have watched cricket all my life. And I have a sales and marketing background. And this is like one combination made in heaven. And here is, I get my opportunity to be at a game and watch a game and and work through that whole environment. And so I was really really excited, right? And it was a great time because I got to learn so much. I worked in an extremely open format organization, and we kind of set ourselves all kinds of like targets to kind of do things, and we made it happen. After that, I realized that after some time I stopped enjoying being at those games, right? And I was like, okay, now this is where again you have to call your passion for something, and now it's work. Now going to a game and going to a stadium would be like, oh, do I really need to? Can I just not monitor this? Do I need to be there? Um, but so yeah, so that whole thing about passion and whatever is what made me go and work in this live sports space, because I thought this would be fun, right? Not denying that it was not, but at the end of it all, I lost steam through that whole thing. I realized, what, I in fact, it somewhere killed the game for me a little bit. I don't watch
correct?
cricket as much as I used to at one point in time. I also feel like the sport has gone to where it's gone. There's just so many more games. At that time there weren't, and it was easier for you to follow these games and look forward to a series and all of that. Post that, and I realized that okay, I think I'm very okay to play in uncharted waters. So like the league at that time was also a very new thing. Everyone was like, why are you like quitting a job in a television station to go and work in a space that could possibly fail?
Mm.
But I at that time was looking for a challenge, and I always have. Every single
Mm.
job I've taken has taught me something new. It's not been a vertical movement from a career perspective, more horizontal, because I'm actually moving tracks and moving. So if you notice, I said fashion magazine, radio station, television network, live sport. After that, I went to
Mm.
live music.
Mm.
And over there again, it was a completely new space. I'd never worked on organizing a music festival, and I realized how a
Mm.
bunch of very, very, very young people were coming together to make something new and unique, and what
Mm.
it took to kind of build something new and unique. And that was actually I feel like a little bit of a holy grail for me, because that's when I realized the power of your own thought and the power of your
Mm.
own idea, and how do you want to build an experience, right? And that's something that I took from my experience over there. Short stint, but good stint in terms of, because again, I just sat for that 6 months, just sat and looked around at people and figured how people were managing other people, what was really happening in a meeting, who said what and committed what, and what was the end result of that. So when you
Mm.
make promises on a sales table, you're talking to a brand and say, I'd like to do this and let me do this. And then you want to actually see how you can achieve all those things you've promised. Easy to say,
Mm.
but you now have to go and actually do it. And
Correct.
to what degree and how you apply your own standards to things,
Mm.
right? Which makes something really beautifully explosive from an idea or an experience perspective. So I
Mm.
thought that was something that I took from my stint with like this live music company. And then post that, I went again. Then after live music, I said, hey, like, let me work now for like music, but in the corporate space.
Mm.
Again, over there, it was like it'll be interesting to get brands to use music in their marketing
Mm.
strategies and how they
Mm.
would like to go and do that. And that was again, an international, like, company, and the perks of like being at a company that was so rich and flush with funds, and everything was like, a champagne party, and everything was, slightly like over the top, especially since like I came from an organization that thrived on ideas but didn't have the money, and here
Mm.
was an organization that had a lot of money but just brain drain.
Mm. Correct.
And again, so these were all these little passion. I like music, and then I realized that actually, you may have a lot of ideas.
Mm.
Is the world really ready for some of these ideas? I
Mm.
was selling music festivals 10 years ago,
Mm.
which at that time, like, music festivals were like, what is this?
Correct. ये क्या है?
Yeah, so
Why do
have
we
been
need
a
a
little
music
ahead of the
festival?
curve, but I like those challenges, and that's how
Mm.
I have seeked my career growth. I have only thrown myself into spaces that were more so a little bit of trend forecasting, right?
Mm.
So I'm really good at figuring what could be like the next hottest thing, and then be there at an early stage,
Mm.
because the ownership and the accountability that you really
Mm.
need in these brands at these kind of offices is massive. And I
Mm.
think after having done all of these things, when IVM happened, I really actually was always wondering, like, who would hire me, especially when you have 5 different stages of experience through your work.
Correct.
I did brand solutions. I did special projects at like the television network that I was actually a really, really big resource at my radio station that I was at. What live music and what that really meant, and how do you commit things to that. So everything was new. And
Mm.
how then, who would want me with all this rather broad experience, right? I wasn't really a
Correct.
radio champ or a TV champ or any of this. But IVM is where I've actually managed to use the culmination of all these skill sets, that you kind of take and apply to this new venture that needs,
Mm.
experience across many things.
Mm.
and how to kind of make all of these things. And so I've literally, like, in my head, like, all that I've applied to IVM is a result of, like, I literally went and collected, like, trumps, like, through all, like, the job experiences to now be sitting with 10 cards to play with, right?
Correct. In fact, there's something that we call a multi-potentialite. And this is the idea of a multi-potentialite. When you've learned so many different things that you have the ability to now mix and match. You can make a bhelpur, you can make a khichdi out of it and actually build something completely new. And because you're a multi-potentialite, you have the ability to see problems in a very different manner from where somebody who has been in one particular discipline their entire life can see that. If you've been in one discipline the entire life, it's like the only thing you know how to use is a hammer and everything seems like a nail to you, right?
Yes.
But there are other ways of using things and other ways of solving problems. So I think this is an extremely big learning from your journey so far, right? On how to become a multi-potentialite and not feel worried about it. The
Yeah,
second
I didn't
important
really
learning
stress
is
about that. Yeah.
the second important learning is that it's so interesting because everybody who is starting off on their first job believes that this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. Correct. And if I don't find that one passion right in the beginning, meaning what is the point of living? And these are the kinds of questions I get. Ashtin, I'm in this current thing, I'm selling mutual funds, but I don't know if I can be doing this for the rest of my life. Arey, Baba, but who said that that is what you'll be doing for the rest of your life? We take it so seriously, especially when we're just starting our careers, saying that I'm building my career. Great. You're not building a career, you're building experiences. And that is what is important for you to take on board. Are you taking experiences? Are you learning experiences or not? That is the way that I see at least growth in this context.
So I feel that, people think it's important to become their job. And I'm not that at all. I have now disassociated my myself from, and it's not like I'm at a stage of completion, but little by little, right? That, is my job me? Am I the job? Like, what is that? Like, a lot of people, when they, and you've known me at IVM now for so long, right? Everyone's like, you speak with such passion. I understand how you built this and whatever, right? But um, I really now, I'm a big one to take, like, weekends off. And I'm just like, no, I'm another person on the weekend. And it's mostly role playing, right? Because at the end of it all, we need to achieve as many things as we want to. And how are we, these different people, different, I think, objectives need a different role, right? You need to you need to run at different paces, like, to be
Different
able to
hats.
yeah, you wear different hats. And how do you want to kind of, so my morning personality is very different from my evening personality. Yeah, I'm in a deep state of chill, but at the same time there is certain momentum in the morning which I am winding down by the evening. So I think this thing about, like, being stressed about, like, job and career, and this is what, like, I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life, is not something that I think anyone should really be stressed about, because opportunities are there. I'm a big one for actually getting in touch with people. I have actually gotten at least two of these 6 jobs by writing to, like, the founders and saying, hey, I'm so and so, and I come from this background, but I've been watching what y'all do, and I think this is where I can come and contribute, and this is what I can do. I don't see this function. And people really, really like it when you have studied what they do, right? I think that's, again, one of the reasons why I think, say, like, Amit and me get along so well. Like, I came here to lead brand for IVM, but I did that with so much deep ownership and accountability that, I was, like, becoming a gatekeeper for almost everything, where, like, the operations of how this was going to work, right?
Correct.
And setting a certain amount of design to it, because if it's all haphazard, then it's not pretty. And if you want to go and look at this on a daily basis, then it better be pretty. And
In fact, Kavita, I want to stop you and point out two things because you said them in passing. The first one is that first add value. What you did was by pointing out that, maybe this function is not there. It was basically showing the owner of the company or the head of that company that I am giving you value without asking for anything in return. very often our approach is मुझे क्या मिलने वाला है. Especially when we start off our careers and we are on this, oh, मुझे क्या मिलने वाला है, what am I going to get out of this, what am I going to get out of this, is the only thing that we see, instead of actually saying, how am I going to be a part of this? How can I contribute? How can I first add value?
Like conditionless, right?
Conditionless.
Yes.
Take it or leave
Take
it,
it or
but
leave
this
it,
is the
but this
value
is what I can give you. Yeah.
Right? And this is what maybe I've pointed out, these 5 things you can, in fact, here, talk to these 2 people as well. I love doing that. And
Being
then people say, wow.
proactive around something,
Yeah.
right? Like, I can see you're struggling with this. Can I really step in and give you, some, because this is what I know. And I think, yeah, I like it even within the team that we've built right now, right? I'm constantly telling them that don't be that person who's just taking notes on the side. Contribute. You have a voice. You work for a great organization. Be happy about it.
Yeah.
And because I can't. And another big joke, right? Like, I'm always telling them, I cannot bring you the most beautiful toys on a daily basis to entertain you. You learn how to make your own toys and play with them on a daily basis. Keep yourself going, because this mood management, is a thing that is important, because with great mood is going to apply great ideas and and feel happy about achieving them, right? But it's that whole thing about being proactive around contributing with fun things. I'm always like, why am I think I'm like the oldest in this office. Why am I the one contributing with social media ideas? I mean, who is the 25-year-old? You all are the people sitting on these mediums, and you all should be telling me about meme culture and things like that, right?
Kya ho raha hai? Correct.
You're the reflection of your generation. So
In fact, we're gonna do this at the end of this podcast. Okay, we're gonna do 5 habits or things that you wish people knew when they started work. Okay, you will do one, I'll do one, you will do one, I'll do one, and then you'll finish the last one.
Okay,
off.
done.
Okay, so 3 from you, 2 from me. But before that, I want to point out the second thing that you had spoken about, which is ownership. When you join a company, no matter where you are in the level, you should feel you own the place. Right? Because when you feel you own the place, you will feel that it is not about them doing dua to you by giving you a job. It is you will feel like you are actually a part of this whole journey. And I think that is so important. Like Kavita, how much I feel I'm an owner of IVM. Right? In my mind, I'm an owner of IVM. I'm
Yeah.
always saying this is our thing, this is our thing, and our thing. Obviously, I'm not an owner, but I'm saying that this is the way that I feel about it, which is why there is so much passion when I'm doing the podcast and when we work together.
Right.
Correct? So it doesn't matter whether you own it or don't own it. That sense of ownership is so, 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 so important. All right, lovely. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, actually, ownership is where it's at. I really feel that, the more you feel one with this, and that actually maybe contradicts am I the job or is the job me? Understand that you're playing a certain role. Go give it your best shot. And what is that best shot? And that is where the work is.
Correct.
What is your definition of a 100% shot? Because then no disappointment will happen. Even at the end of the day, I failed. I'm like, but I went and played my best game. I still failed, but I'll go back there tomorrow and I'll play it all over again. So it is, it's going to be tiring. It's going to be exhausting and all of that. But heck, all the other things that you do around it then become important.
Yeah, and it might be a job that you hate for the time being. But if you're giving it your all, you will still feel that little bit of satisfaction.
Yes.
Right? If it is a job that you hate and you're not giving it your all, that is double dissatisfaction that you're going to feel at the end of the day, because you're not just justifying it to yourself either.
Yes.
The company
You
might have
haven't
failed
convinced
you, but you're
yourself about actually being here. And then that
Correct.
dissonance is in your mind. And so freedom and the more you want to put on your plate, the more you'll grow, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so Kavita, 5 things that you wish people knew when they started their job, or 5 things that can improve the way that you function.
Be organized.
Explain.
Like, collect yourself and collect your thoughts. It's going to be overwhelming, but this is your personal ability. So organize, the things you want to kind of do, organize your mind, organize the conversations you want to have with people. Yeah, I think just being organized is.
Yeah, I remember having this conversation with Kavita in one of our meetings when she's like, yeah, take notes on everything and organize everything, meaning document everything. Because we were talking about how every single episode of mine is there in a spreadsheet that I have maintained. So if you want to search for a topic, I can tell you which episode, where, and how.
Thank you for
So
bringing
that is
this up,
exact.
because yes, I should have said taking notes. I'm just yelling at everybody. Attach a notebook to yourself and take notes. How is it physically and mentally possible for you to remember everything that you talk about, right? It's not possible. I'm still taking notes. So, yeah, I think organizing yourself and knowing that you need to carry a notebook is important.
Yeah. In fact, Kavita, this reminds me of a person that I knew as a very, 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 very large business owner. And along with him came a suitcase. One of those big
Briefcase. Oh, that,
suitcases.
okay.
Suitcase, like a trolley, filled with all his previous notebooks. So he would write notes every single meeting, and then stuff from 3 years ago he was still carrying with him
Wow, but that's a
because he
that's
was
a lot
like,
of like
yeah, but that
burden.
dedication.
Yeah.
Went with the driver also, but
Well done.
like it was the way that he focused on his note taking that is important. And I think you pick up these little things along the way,
Yes.
and you file them off, and that's so important. All right, my turn. So one thing I wish everyone knew is that when you come out of college and school, education teaches you to do hard work. That means you have to spend 10 hours studying. You have to fill up 15 pages, otherwise, your answer is not taken into consideration. Hard work is the metric that is used to see or judge effort. I'm not talking about the marks, but I'm talking about the work that you put in. In the working environment, it is not about hard work. Nobody cares about the hard work you put in, but it is about the result that you delivered in the end. So working is about efficiency, and hence working and creating that efficiency are clearly important. So don't think about time as in I am spending 4 hours on this task. Think about the number of tasks you end up doing in a day. So I think that change is very, very important when you start working.
Interesting.
Nah? Because otherwise we're constantly saying, oh, I spent 4 hours doing this presentation. Okay,
Yes.
Dhakkan, you did one thing, you made a presentation.
Presentation.
Right? You
Yeah.
could have finished that presentation in 1.5 hours also.
Yeah.
You could have taken 4 hours also. You could have taken 3 days also.
Also,
But
yeah,
the
stop
task was,
counting like all of these things, right? Some things are going to set yourself a little bit of a time target as well. Yeah.
yeah, for me, so for example, like I was telling you, I'm having a long day today. So let me tell you what my day looks like today. All right. So woke up at 5:30, finished my normal morning meditation, exercise, did my training. 9:30 workday start. No, actually before that. 7 to 8:30 was my first podcast writing. So first script was written at that point of time. 9:30 to 10:30 first client call. Then I had a half an hour break in which I recorded one YouTube video. Then 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock was my second client call. 12:30 to now is our podcast recording. After that, I'll be recording 2 YouTube videos, recording 2 podcasts, which are our single, my 5-minute ones. 5 o'clock is a interview with a new person to join our organization. 6 o'clock is interview with a new client. 7:30 is the second long podcast. Now, this is what my typical working day looks like. Now, imagine if I was counting, saying, oh, I spent so much time working on this, so much time working. No, it was task-based. Tuck, 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 done. Right? And I know exactly where I'm going to be at each point of time during my day because that
And
is
you've
it.
moved forward.
And I move forward. I've finished all the podcast recordings for that we will require for the next week and the week after that. And I've created that kind of space for my life.
Yep.
Right? So it is all about efficiency and getting efficiency and not about maine kitna kaam kiya, how much I've worked. Right? That is school and college mentality. When you come into the workplace, that is different. All right, your turn.
I think attitude. Um, I think a good attitude, which would encapsulate like being not just about like being a pleasant person. You might be the person who doesn't really speak too much or is rather gregarious, which is fine. But being effective with some other form of communication is important, right? And that's what I think like builds your like general like attitude at work. There is, I think, a lot of conversations again about approach and how you need to see a new challenge, and um, what you really want to come in and contribute into that or in that organization, or all of that is all going to depend on what kind of attitude you have. If you are someone who's not willing to learn, is going to stunt your growth in some form or way. If you're not a team player, is going to help you, is going to result in some kind of problem. If you're not someone who understands the pace of the organization, is going to be a problem. So I think all these things make for a certain kind of an attitude that you need to kind of chart for yourself and say, hey, when I'm here, I want to do this, I'm here to achieve, and I'm here to learn, right? That these are my two goals. That's how I'm going to get through my day or week or my targets, or like my time here. So I think developing a great attitude around things
Yeah,
is important.
especially these four things that you spoke about, very very important. Like the learning aspect, and in fact that ties in well with the third point that I wanted to make, which was that you never have a salary problem. You never paid a lower salary. You always have a skill problem.
Mm,
You are always paid equivalent to what your skill is and what you can give to the organization. So if you ever are complaining saying that, oh, I have a small salary, I have a small salary, no, you have a small skill. That means you have not been learning.
yeah,
As soon as you stop learning, you stop growing.
yeah.
So the thing is that the more you can grow in this, the better your salary can be, the faster you can grow. And I was in fact I was speaking to the managing director of a company once, and we were talking about how his journey was through becoming an MD. So he's not the owner of the company. He grew up. He grew through the ranks, as it were. But what the company did was they put him in different, completely varying designations. So once he was in the finance department, then he was in the HR department, then he was in the operations department, then he was in this department. Because he had that width of an understanding, he was able to be the managing director of that company, right? He was able to grow through it, and that is the most important thing. He was picking up skills.
Hmm,
He wasn't saying chi mujhe HR karne diya, chi
exactly.
mujhe isne karne diya. He wasn't saying any of that. He was saying I'm accumulating skills.
Yes,
And I think if you have that as an attitude, the path of growth is much much faster than otherwise.
absolutely. Because this attitude thing is what I would maybe correlate to like my approach at IVM. I didn't come from any content direction or production background whatsoever. But then here I am producing all these shows because my attitude at that point in is like, yeah, sure, I came here to sell a product, but there is no product to sell. Now let's work on creating this product. And I'm okay now to wear this new hat. And what is this new challenge? Okay, this means we have to put out some high quality content in a certain new arena. This is a
Yeah.
new animal. And so my attitude there was not like, hey, I'm not really good at this. So I'm just like, hey, it's a horses for courses kind of attitude. Like, what is the requirement right now? You need me to wear this hat? Sure. By all means, let's wear this hat. Don't say much in a meeting because you don't want to come away sounding like you don't know anything. But I now have gotten the gist around how this can move. And, this block building, this puzzle solving thing, right? I'm actually looking at most of these things just like that. Okay, a show needs to be made. It needs to have this tonality. It needs to be hosted by this kind of person. And these are just actually simplifying and logically applying what could make for fun conversations.
Yeah.
And that's why then, should the habit coach be one long drawn show episode, or should it be a short format show? How much do you want to really tell everybody how they must change their lives? And mood maintenance and what the tone. So I'm saying, so the attitude at that time was that, okay, if this is this is what you require of me right now, Let's now jump into this pool and let's do
And do
this.
it. And I think this is the perfect fifth thing that you wanted to say, which is
Hey, I actually
never
have
say
a
it is
fifth
not my
one.
job. Array, shit, I stole it. Okay, fine. Bonus number. We'll have to say bonus.
Yes.
Bonus sixth. But I want to make a point saying that never say it is not my job,
Yes. Never
right?
say it's not my job.
Never say it's not my
If
job.
you are of the
As
aptitude and you come from where you come from, I think you have the ability to actually do whatever is required, right?
Yeah, yeah. Never say it's not my job. I remember so many times I've cleaned the bathrooms of my offices, right?
Because that's
As
what's
a
needed of you
boss,
right now.
that was needed at the point, right? As a boss, I had to make sure that the bathrooms and there was cleanliness for my staff when they came in. So they would come in at 9:30. I would go early and I would clean the bathroom because the person who was supposed to be there was not there. It is fine.
Yeah.
You can't say it's not my job, mate. Why should I do it? You can do whatever job it is that needs to be done. And that is the kind of team mentality that's
Yeah, but that's
important.
what, like, I always wanted to be like that bowler or like that batsman in the pavilion. We're like, we're in shit. Who can bail us out? Me. I'll put my neck on that
Who are you going to
line and I'll do
call?
it. Yeah. So is my turn? Do I have a turn again or what is it? Because, like I said, I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
one
yeah.
more
Bonus
point.
number six. Bonus
Bonus
number
number
six.
6, be a troubleshooter. Be a troubleshooter.
What does that mean?
No, identify that, there are certain requirements, and just like what I kind of partially mentioned earlier, right? I feel like all kinds of, when you're in an organization at any level, right, there are all kinds of challenges. I always, I'm training everybody in the office to not come to me with too many problems. Like, you've identified a problem, I'm happy about that. Now, can you just sit for some time and actually maybe figure out how would you solve this if you were in this situation by yourself? And then come to me and tell me that, you know what, actually, this was the problem. We addressed it in this way. This is the little bit of a solution set that we identified. Now, actually, help us figure which is the best direction. But process some stuff, because it's almost like, when you're rather young, you're just like, hey, I really don't know, but just think, what do you have on your plate? A problem. There's something that needs to be solved. What is this? What quality or what range or what grade is this problem? How big is this problem? How small is this problem? So
Correct.
be in the moment and actually think of, if what would I do, what is my way out, and I then judge like the understanding somebody has around a situation or around a problem or around a project, by actually seeing how they solve that. And one of the reasons
Yeah.
why I grew massively, like through all the organizations I worked at, was that I had the ability to be a troubleshooter. Even like with Amit, right? I'm just like, oh, what is the problem? Nothing. I don't know about this. Why aren't we just doing this? And he's like, yeah, shit, damn, I didn't think of it like that. It's just another way of thinking about things, maybe, or whatever. And that is great. It's like when we were talking about those, what we wanted to call ourselves, right? Um, Private extroverts.
Correct.
And you were like, wow, what is this like term? But think about it, we're actually friendly people. We go out, we meet, I have the ability to chatter with anybody that I meet, right? It's because I think of our like marketing jobs that we've had, and it's a little bit of our personality.
There's
But
a skill that you have to learn.
and the skill that you have to learn. But at the same time, that we're not like, we're private people. We like to keep all our things to ourselves. And so how then can we be able, so I concentrate all my energies in being able to, solve problems. I feel like that's like my job right now, like HR and like solving problems. Like, what is it? How do we do this? Where do we go? Why aren't you thinking of this like this? Even through like my me testing positive, right? I'd kind of started like, coming into work for 3 hours in the morning when my energy levels were reasonably okay. And then they would plummet, right? Like, post lunch or whatever. But I was literally like joining calls for 3 hours and say, come with all your problems and I will just solve them
Fat, fat,
one
fat,
after
fat,
the
fat,
other.
fat.
Done. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Don't be an alarm bell. Be a troubleshooter. Right? Don't just say problem, a problem, a problem, a problem. Actually
Think,
do something
do
about it and
something.
give suggestions. Right? Even if it's out of your control to do something, give suggestions. Don't just come in with problems. I love it. Kavita, this was a very interesting podcast. Huh? I wish I had known all these things when I was starting out. I think these are the kinds of things that,
No, I didn't know these when I
conversation.
was starting out as well, but I kind of now have found my way around identifying what these things are. I have a long way to go in the sense like I need to discipline myself around a lot of things myself, right?
Dude, the way you're going, next stop is aerospace. Huh? Yeah, you just like tried everything. Now aerospace, then what will you do? Chemical engineering. Acha, theek hai.
But no, I'm always one to always think of like, what next?
What next? Love it. Kavita, thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you? How can people continue this
Find me
conversation with you?
on Twitter. I'm on Kavita Rajwade there. I'm also Kavita Rajwade on Instagram and Kavita Rajwade on LinkedIn.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Kavita, for joining us and coming on the Habit Coach podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ash.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We are at IVM Podcasts on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to reach out to me, I am Ashdin Doc on Twitter and Instagram. You can find lots more information on my website, awesome180.com, or check out different content on my YouTube channel called AWESOME 180. That's Awesome 180.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Would like to thank the sponsors on the network this week, Cred, Ciet, and Global Victoria. Thank you so much for making this possible. On Cyrus Says, Cyrus is joined by the hilarious and extremely charming illusionist and therapist Suhani Shah. They talk about different aspects of magic like sleight of hand, mind reading, mentalism, and more. The Habit Coach completed 500 episodes, 500, and Ashdin has a special message for us on the occasion. Do check that out. We had Lekini Desai, founder of the India Ethnic Company, talk to Varun Digirala about their story and the Hatke marketing idea that made them popular. On Nankari, Sadaf and Archit celebrated World Chocolate Day. They took us through the origins, history, economics of chocolate, and shared their memories. On Tere Mere Raste, Keshav Chaturvedi shares an interesting story from Leh. Check out an updated version of the Traveling Professor's Diary. It's now rechristened as Smarter with Sid. Same old brain filled with news stories and insights. This time, listening to know why you should keep things simple. And finally, check out Global Victoria Tech Talks. This one is in partnership with Global Victoria, the trade arm of the Government of Victoria and Australia. The edtech and gaming industries are booming in Victoria, Australia, and this series is meant to showcase that. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.